Greetings and welcome to the maiden edition of the program, The Other Option. A program of Aspire Radio dedicated to sharing actionable insights derived from the laws that govern all life. This program emphasizes the importance of aligning with these universal laws for personal and spiritual growth, offering listeners a path to transformative change. The Other Option is brought to you courtesy of Nkemefuna Foundation, committed to promoting local language, arts and music, and Limitless Managers, providing innovative solutions for a sustainable future. Today especially, we dive into the pages of a book with an intriguing title, The Spirit of Truth Brings the Everlasting Testament, written by Stephen Lampe. For those who over the years have followed Lampe's literary activities know that he has other publications under his belt, including The Christian and Reincarnation, Building Future Societies, The Spiritual Principles, Thinking About God, Reflections on Conceptions and Misconceptions, The Primordial Laws of Creation, Keys to Joyous Achievement of Life's Purposes, and now what comes across as the crowning point of Lampe's literary effort, The Spirit of Truth Brings the Everlasting Testament. On this program, The Other Option, we will unpack this book following three distinct themes over 3 episodes, namely the nature of the Spirit of Truth, the Everlasting Testament, and practical guidance for spiritual growth that bridges the gap between science, religion, and spirituality. In this 363 pages comprising 13 chapters, Lampe acknowledges the unique contributions of 4 gentlemen, Mr. Lade Bonwola, Mr. Deji Hastrop, Mr. Kola Lawani, and Mr. Olushola Samuel Adegbe. The first 3 of whom, together we will delve into the pages to unlock the objective of Lampe's book. Now, this particular edition focuses on the nature of the Spirit of Truth. And to lead us into this discourse is none other than Mr. Kola Lawani. Wale, you're welcome to the program.
Good evening, Mobi. Thanks for that.
Wale Lawani is a Nigerian entrepreneur and business executive with over 2 decades of experience in enterprise technology, startups, angel investing, and business strategy consulting. He explores the development of post-capitalist business models for a new era. Wale blogs at www.worddiscovered.com and is an author and educator. Once again, The Other Option is made possible by Nkemefuna Foundation, committed to promoting local language, arts and music, and Limitless Managers, innovative solutions for a sustainable future. The Spirit of Truth, Wale Lawani. The concept itself of the Spirit of Truth is central to this book. For many, it might feel abstract, almost intangible. So let's bring it to life. My first question will be, what does the Spirit of Truth mean to the modern seeker? And why is it so crucial for our times?
There are several questions embodied in that question you have just asked me. I guess we will have to spend some time on various aspects of that. Perhaps first we should ask ourselves, what is truth? If, for example, I were to tell you that the sky is blue, I'm sure you would probably say that sounds true. Obviously, at a deeper level of analysis, we realize that that may not be so true because it depends actually on the way our eyes process light and so on and so forth. And so as we keep going into deeper and deeper levels of truth. We realize that what is true at one level is not quite true at the next level. And if we play this out to the very end, we find that actually that means that there's only one real truth, which is actually the Almighty Creator, and that which issues from Him. And so when we speak of truth, we can only speak about that which reveals the nature of the Almighty Creator to us as human beings. Clearly, only the Almighty can reveal Himself to us properly. And that is why we can say that the words, for example, of Jesus Christ are truth, because we recognize that Christ, as a part of the Almighty, knows the Almighty, if I use the word know in quotes. And so this is truth. If we are to speak then of a spirit of truth, clearly we must then be talking about something that is connected or that comes from the Almighty Creator. And so as not to lengthen my answer too much, and we can say that, at least based on what Lampe has shown us from various versions of the Bible and various interpretations of the words of Christ, that Christ spoke about this spirit of truth clearly in the Bible, about sending this spirit of truth. And so it is clear that we are discussing a concept or a personality that issues from the Almighty, that reveals the nature of the Almighty to us, and that is meant for a time after Christ had left.
Let me then ask a follow-up question based on what you just said. Does Lampe then suggest that the spirit of truth has been misunderstood in history? If so, what's the key correction he offers?
Lampe goes into a lot of detail about how the rendition of different passages relating to the spirit of truth differs even from one version of the Bible to another. So I think we can safely say that it must have been misconstrued, because that which everybody understands would only have one version. So clearly there must be a fundamental misunderstanding if we have so many ways that even the Bible itself has rendered the same concept. Now, Lampe makes clear that the spirit of truth is a reality prophesied by Christ and is a personality, which also the Bible agrees with, although one of the key issues here is that personality is often conflated with the personality of Jesus Christ Himself. So the question of, is the spirit of truth the same as Jesus Christ, is fundamental to your question. And Lampe shows quite clearly that even from the words of Jesus Christ Himself, we should view the spirit of truth as a different personality, although still unified with Christ and the Almighty Father.
Thank you. So the title itself, from what you're saying, is the spirit of truth brings the everlasting testament. Is a declaration. Is it saying, is the spirit of truth from this title to be expected, or has He already brought the everlasting testament, as Lampe refers?
I think the first thing is, let us first agree that even according to biblical passages, and whether it is in Corinthians or whether it's in the words of Christ, that the spirit of truth was prophesied to bring further revelation. You will recall passages such as, we know only in part, and when that which is perfect is come, etc., etc. So, given this reality, let us first agree that indeed there's a spirit of truth, and that indeed He brings what can be called an everlasting testament, because Christ clearly stated that He shall remain with us, and He would be the eternal mediator. So the spirit of truth does bring the everlasting testament. That should not be a controversial statement. Now, the question of whether that is meant for a future time or the present time is something that every serious seeker would have to arrive at of himself, because that is a very personal and deep spiritual issue. What I would suggest is that all the signs that were prophesied to align with the time the Spirit of truth would bring this everlasting testament, appear to be with us. We appear to be going through a time of civilizational collapse, if one can use such a term. We appear to be going through a period in which we visibly see a decay in the morality and spirituality of the world around us. And so it should occur to any serious-minded seeker that given the momentous changes we continue to experience in our lives and the structure of the civilization we currently have, that this must be at the time that truth is needed most of all. We need truth to get us out of the scenario we currently find ourselves. So it would stand to reason that the Spirit of truth may well have brought this everlasting testament, and we need to be quite alert right now at this time.
Okay, I like the way you put it. So, what else did Lampe say of the task of the Spirit of Truth, aside from the obvious one of bringing the everlasting testament?
I think before we leave that, let's make clear that that the bringing of the everlasting testament is something so momentous. The everlasting testament speaks of complete truth. It speaks of giving us all the touchstones of knowledge, real knowledge that we need for lasting happiness on earth. This means that we're actually looking out for something that can shed light on economic issues, political issues, social issues, health issues, and so on and so forth. That is this everlasting testament that every seeker should be looking out for today. And within that, but of course, like I said earlier, this is coming at a particular time in human evolution. And the Spirit of truth, clearly as stated by Christ himself, does not only bring truth and does not only remind us of the words of Christ, but as Christ said, he will reprove the world of sin. And this brings us to the concept of a world judgment. This means that we have reached the end of a certain cycle of development. The last 2,000 years, anybody looking at the history will realize we have gone through a big circle of development, a big cycle, and that we appear to be coming to the end of that cycle. And along with the end of that cycle, we are saying that perhaps what we are facing today, these challenges, this suffering, this misery around us, these may all be the signs of a judgment.
Wow, thank you very much, Wale. Now, if indeed, from what you're saying, the signs are already all there, all clear, that will bring me to some very interesting quotations that apparently have been lifted by Lampe from the Bible in the very opening pages of Lampe's book, The Spirit of Truth Brings the Everlasting Testament, some of which you've already alluded to. The first one says, I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of Truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak of his own, but will speak whatever he hears, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. That is coming from John 16:12-13 of the New Revised Standard Version. And he goes again with 3 other quotations. But the Paraclete, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you everything and remind you of all I have said to you. John 14:26 from New Jerusalem Bible. Then he adds again, for we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. That's from 1 Corinthians 13:9-10 from the New Revised Standard Version. And then lastly, then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and springs of water. That's from Revelations 14:6-7. From New King James Version. And indeed, for Lampe to have put this up in the preliminary pages of the book means that he's really bringing our attention to something very momentous in connection with the spirit of truth. Because if going with all you've said, the signs are all there, and indeed this has happened, wouldn't that suggest then that these references and proclamations in some of these religious texts, especially in the Bible, in connection with the spirit of truth, we will invariably be reading them in the present tense?
I would agree that we should read them in the present tense. I would go so far as to say that one's own spiritual journey has convinced one that that this everlasting testament is actually accessible to us today. What I think needs to be taken out of these 4 paragraphs that you have stated, and this I would I put this to the Christian listener, is that first and foremost there must be an openness to new revelation. Otherwise, we shall become like the Jews who at the time of Christ said that we are Abraham's children, we need no new revelations. That would be doubly problematic, because if Christ himself had actually already said clearly that there would be future revelations, as in some of in what you have just said, I will pray the Father and he will send you another advocate, etc., etc. So let us first be open to new revelation, and now being open to new revelation, let us understand that this new revelation shall speak of certain things. And again, based on the quotations you have just told us, we shall be speaking of it shall speak of the world judgment. It shall speak of the end of this time. It shall speak of human nature. It shall speak of the errors we have made. It shall clarify the message of Christ for us so that we can truly understand it as it actually is. And through that, it shall bring us happiness. But in that happiness, it will require that we change ourselves, because the everlasting testament is eternal while we are merely developing.
Wow, I like the way you put it. The everlasting testament is eternal. It is while we are becoming. Now, in this connection, Lampe suggests as a major thrust of his book, of this book, the need to look deeper into the Bible, but at the same time to exercise the courage, the humility to look beyond the Bible. What does he mean by that? How do we reconcile?
Lampe makes, and I think he gives very good examples about the fact that, yes, we look into the Bible. Christians look into the Bible. But there are many things that Christians use from outside the Bible to determine the truth of what is in the Bible. And that is not controversial because, for example, there are many verses in the Bible that support the concept of slavery. For example, in First Peter chapter 2, verse 2, there's apparently the support for slavery. And yet most Christians today would agree that slavery is wrong. So they must have looked outside the Bible and beyond the Bible into their hearts, into their own intuition, into their perception of life, to have arrived at that understanding. So it should not be controversial to any Christian if we then say that it is necessary to look beyond the Bible and in so doing to understand the Bible better. Lampe also cites issues around how the Almighty God, who we know is perfect, love, justice, he is now in the Bible, he's presented as doing things that could only be described as unjust, or at the very least questionable. Again, Christians have looked, it's not a new thing actually. Many Christians over the ages have already looked beyond this to say, okay, these are stories that are telling us something, but they should not necessarily be taken literally. So Lampe is simply saying, he's calling on our faculties, he's calling on our own intuition and our innate knowledge of what is right and what is loving and what is justice and what is pure, to allow us to be on the lookout for the everlasting testament, which will be beyond the Bible, but will not in any way, but will only straighten the things that have not been clarified for many in the Bible.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And just taking you back a little bit to the bit, you talked about the Jews having insisted on what it was that they knew, even when one who was promised was in their midst. There is a particular rendition of the Lord Christ chastising in while he was around, which I often like to look at, where he says, "You search the scriptures, for in them you think you find eternal life, but they are there that testify of me, but you're not willing to come to me." So interestingly, the word that they were looking for, that were waiting for, was there with them in flesh and blood. Yet they were insisting on what it was that they already had. And here we are. Is a similar thing is history about to repeat itself?
As human beings, we appear to continue to allow history to repeat itself in many ways. And there are many reasons for that. I think that one reason that we see, which also happened with the Jews, is the lack of independence in the search for truth, the reliance on the views of other people, whether it is institutions or churches or peers and mentors and so on. So the seeker, if he's genuine about his seeking, must first regain his own independence in the search. He must have faith in the love of God that will guide him to this truth, and know that whatever befalls him in that search is for his own benefit.
Thank you very much. Now, Wally, what other thoughts on this subject would you want to leave with the listener as a way of some call to action?
I think the call to action is really to read Lampe's book. Lampe's book is a fantastic resource for anybody who is interested in the Bible in any way. And so even Christians who may not think of themselves as seekers, who see themselves as merely curious, should find it a very, very worthwhile book to read. For those who view themselves as seekers, they will find direct pointers, much more detailed direct pointers to the nature of this everlasting testament we are talking about, to the nature of this spirit of truth. They will find very specific references that they can look at. But they should rest assured that they can only gain by reading this book.
Fantastic. They can only gain by reading this book and talking about the spirit of truth, who can be a better witness to the Lord Christ himself. Do you have any hints as to how he can be recognized and his everlasting testament?
Any Christian, for example, who has sought to fully understand the words of Christ must of course be open to thoughts and guidance and writings from other sources on the words of Christ. So if you are to find today, you will find today that there are, and Lampe mentioned some of this, a particular work that explains the message of Christ in a way that no man has ever explained it, that I personally found much more illuminating than I think any human being could have given. So his ability to shed light on Christ, his ability to glorify Christ in his writings, is a clear pointer to the nature of the spirit of truth. And as we started the conversation with the concept of truth. Does this truth shed light on all the ills of humanity? Economics, social, political, cultural, etc. Can it shed light on that? If it can shed light on that, then surely it must contain the truth. And so the seeker should open his eyes and recognize that today there may be such a work available to him. And Lampe does mention more about that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wale Lawani. It's really been a pleasure having you lend a voice on this very first part of this book review. The Spirit of Truth brings the everlasting testament. Wale Lawani, aside from doing this, what is your connection with Mr. Stephen Lampe? What is it that endears you to him?
His writings endear me to him.
There's, there's something else you're not telling us. Anyway, thank you very much for being.
Thank you very much, Bobby. That's been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much for being part of the program today. The other option on Aspire Radio, looking at the book, The Spirit of Truth Brings the Everlasting Testament by Stephen Lampe. Just to remind you once again, this program was brought to you courtesy of Nkemefuna Foundation and Limitless Managers. Talking about Nkemefuna Foundation, committed to promoting local language, arts and music, and Limitless Managers, bringing innovative solutions for a sustainable future. I am Waobi Orakwe, till I come your way again next week on the second segment, the second theme of this discourse. Wale, thank you for being with us. See you again sometime.